One of the things I learned somewhere along the way, which was a great aha for me, and I can't really remember the circumstances except I remember the aha, and it was, there's nothing about me that needs to be protected. Now, the world walks around protecting itself. And what we do in this teaching is remember the self that doesn't need protecting. So a lot of what we talk about is about the true self, but it isn't always about that. It's also about the persona that we're presenting to the world and how we can be mindful of that, and if necessary, make some changes because it has to do with how we're experiencing life and how life experiences us, how we present ourselves. So I want to start with Ralph Waldo Emerson today, who said, "Be and not seem." 4 little words, so profound, not so easy to sort out in relation to ourselves. I mean, the obvious question would be, wait a minute, is he saying that I'm seeming to be me, but I'm not really being me? And that's kind of, yeah, he is. To some extent, we all do that. There's a couple of dramatic examples that I want to share with you that have fascinated me for years. They are amnesia and multiple personalities. Amnesia, can you imagine what it would be like if you didn't know who you were, you didn't know how to describe yourself because there was no past, maybe you didn't even know your name. So the question is, how would you describe yourself? What would you say about yourself if you didn't know? You know, it reminds me of that old question by Satchel Paige, the baseball player from way back, who said, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you was? I'd be 30. But it's an interesting thing to play with. In fact, you might do that this week. Really think, if I knew nothing about who I am, what would I say? Most of us refer to the past all the time when we talk about ourselves. We say, I came from, I used to do, I used to be, I remember when, I've always done it this way, kind of thing. It's kind of impossible to talk about yourself without referring somewhat to the accumulation of experience you've had, and therefore the identity that you've constructed, if you will. Now, the case of multiple personalities is a whole other thing. Even more interesting, it has been clinically recorded that in one case, and actually more than one case, but the one that really I remember the most, let's say there's a person who has 4 identities. There's Joe, and there's 12-year-old Mary, and there's 53-year-old Susan, and there's Michael. And they're all very different personalities in the same body. But what they found was that, for example, in Michael, he had all the symptoms of AIDS. It was clinically trackable. But when that person switched to Mary, there were no symptoms of AIDS in the same body. And they've shown the same thing with diabetes and other things. Now, this is very powerful when you think about it. So the implications are really enormous, and they've largely been ignored. So the American Medical Association probably dismissed it, but their dismissal holds a powerful truth, because likely they said, oh, these symptoms were just mind-generated. Ta-da! Yeah, how else would they happen? Unless that personality believed they were manifesting these symptoms. So we're led to assume that how we identify ourselves has everything to do with the condition we're in. And here's some more Emerson. I love Emerson. I'm going to teach a class at him next year, but I quote him all the time. And this is really true of us as a culture. He said, the civilized man has built a coach, but has lost the use of his feet. He is supported on crutches, but lacks so much support of muscle. He has got a fine Geneva watch, but has lost the skill to tell the hour by the sun. Written in the 1800s, but it's even more true today when you think about all of our wonderful technology and how we are inadvertently creating a false identity in some young people. I know some young people who are so into anime and interactive games that they speak about themselves as a character in the program. Now, we could say, well, that's harmless. We'll see. We'll see. It's just another example of how easy it is to interact with an imaginary life and not with the world you live in. You're actually living in a construct. Now, we all are to some extent. The irony of that doesn't escape me. This is a construct. But the question is, who am I seeming to be? That's a good one. So I'm going to throw out some examples, and if any of them have anything to do with you, great. If not, you can make up your own. We're all pretending to be who we are. So, I seem to be a victim of past abuse. I seem to be a medical experiment. A friend of mine told me that about herself because she's had so many procedures and had so many illnesses and so many doctor's appointments. She says, I think I'm a medical experiment. That had become her self-identity. I seem to be unlovable. Lots of people have trouble forming good relationships, and after a while, we begin to think there's something wrong with us. I seem to be incapable of prosperity. You know, a lot of people are just always struggling with money and struggling with finances and building this case for lack when there is no such thing in the universe. There's enough of everything for everybody and more, because everything's generated from the invisible power of intelligence. So, what would we like to say about ourselves instead? So I invite you to come up with something in your own mind. You don't have to share it with anybody. See if you can identify a pattern of how you describe yourself in the world. How often do you tell your story? You know, the old one. How often do we validate who we are by what has happened to us? Or even what is happening now? We're telling a story, but are we really presenting who we are? So one way to begin to change this false persona is to speak about ourselves intentionally, and that's called affirmation, spiritual mind treatment, mindfulness, intentional speech. Now, when you begin to do this sort of thing, the ego thinks you're telling a lie because it's so invested in what we've been saying about ourselves. All right, so I'm going to give you an example. You might want to say this out loud. I am free, of any effects, of past experiences, that do not validate my true worth. Think about that. What if that were true? I've been doing this long enough to have talked to many people about this sort of thing, and they often express in some way, some words, the fear that if they let go of everything in the past, they won't exist. It's existential angst. It's kind of like peeling off labels. You remember those little Post-it notes? Well, people have them pasted all over themselves. And it's like, I am mother, I am grandmother, I am daughter, I am father, I am teacher, I am accountant, I am electrician, I am happy, I am sad, I am mad, I am hopeful. And they're all over us. What if they all went away? And that's the problem that people have is, what if there were no labels on me? Who would I be? Is anybody there? There's definitely somebody there. We knew who that somebody was when we were little. On my personal Facebook page are these words: the God you believe in is your vote for the kind of world you want to live in. Well, the self you believe you are is your vote for the kind of life you expect to have. What we say about ourselves is a command. into this universal intelligence that takes us at our word. And we find ourselves being right. See, I am a victim. See, I am a medical experiment. See, I am unlovable. I can prove it to you over and over again, we would say. It's the way it works. So when we begin to give ourselves something new to talk about, I am free of any effects of past experiences that do not validate my true worth. That's a command too. And it begins, that's why this teaching is so much about learning how to use the mind. Learning how to think, to change your thinking, change your life is really true. Really, really true. So here's some more Emerson, and this is a famous one, but it really fits. A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds. With consistency, a great soul simply has nothing to do. So what is consistent is our self-image. What is consistent is how we describe ourselves. What is consistent is our story, unless and until we let it go. So if we don't look at how we identify ourselves and how we defend our identity, see, people defend their identity, our soul, meaning our potential, might as well not exist. When you think about it, it's pretty sad, isn't it, that we don't tap into more of what is possible for us, but we spend an awful lot of time defending who we say we are, or who we just think we are. So we're learning here, this is New Thought spirituality. The hue and cry of New Thought spirituality is wake up to who you really are. Wake up to your spiritual magnificence. Let go of those psychological states of mind that you have been using to protect yourself. So I ask you again, is there anything about you really that needs protecting? If there's one source of all life, and it's universal, and it's present everywhere we are, all the time, all at once, all of it, responding to our demands made into it, what do we need to protect? Is there anything about you that needs protecting? Yes. Say no. Not when we're walking in our own power. Not when we're allowing ourselves to be in the present. What is the little song? This little light of mine. It's immense. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. But that would mean it's illuminating our own path. It means it goes out before us and we walk into it. That's what consciousness is. You know, it's a big net. There's no such thing as a law of attraction. There's nothing out there. It's generated from inside. So it's as if we throw out a net and we walk into it. We're generating our own experience. And it begins with who we are taking into experience, who we know ourselves to be. Let me ask you seriously, how many of you have changed your self-identity in your lifetime? You have, of course you have. We feel differently about ourselves now than we did when we were 15. Thank God. Or even 10 years ago, right? We've changed it. So spiritual magnificence is not compromised by our low sense of self, but only temporarily inhibited from roaring through us. I remember one time I was with Michael Beckwith and someone was doing a treatment and he stopped in the middle. He says, just let that thing roar through you. Let it come thundering out. And that's how we want to express ourselves, thundering out. We're so afraid of rejection, so afraid people won't like us, so afraid we'll say the wrong thing. Oh my gosh, nowadays nobody can say anything. And it's good that we become more mindful of how our words affect people, but it's gotten a little crazy. But most important is what we say about ourselves. Are we good to ourselves? We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm kind of on a theme here lately. I'll shift next week about the self, because who is always present in every experience in your life? You. You're the constant in your life, right? So you're the only one experiencing experience. How do you know how to experience experience? How do you know what to think about anything? How do you know what to call something or give meaning to? It's based on what we think we are. It's based on who we think is looking, right? We talked about last week how people are not seeking peace of mind, they're seeking their rapture of being alive, which is kind of what we're still talking about. That's our spiritual magnificence that can come roaring through us as great ideas, as a more open heart, as a deeper willingness to love people that are very different from us, as a sense of celebration of life and the diversity. Gary Zukav wrote this one wonderful book a long time ago about the soul. And it says, what is it the soul wants? Well, it doesn't really want anything like the way we want things, but it has a tendency, it has a natural impulsion to express love, beauty, order, harmony, and those things translate into human experiences of music, art, literature, the environment, relationships, all of the qualities that we attribute to the divine, love, joy, peace. They become human experiences if we let them roar through us or even seep out a little bit more than we have in the past. Let them have you. Jennifer said, Spirit having its way with me. That's one of my favorite personal affirmations, is love is having its way with me. And when we let love have its way with us, or even, you could even say health is having its way with me, vitality is having its way with me, then we will find ourselves informed by the potential, by the field. But what that means is we will be prompted to act in a certain way. If vitality is having its way with me, it might prompt me to join an exercise club. It might prompt me to eat less this or that. It might prompt me to take a vitamin. It comes very specifically through each one of us. What prompts me to do will be different from what it prompts someone else to do, because that's how personal God is. It's intimately connected with everything about us. And so when we say, prosperity, have your way with me, we might find ourselves being more generous. We might find ourselves attracting a different kind of work or more work. Yeah. So it's a command. And it comes from seeing ourselves not as just a human being having experiences, but as a spiritual being revealing spirit. So if spirit's made up of those qualities, our place is to be its vehicle, is to express what it is to express the love that spirit is, express its joy, personalize its love and joy, personalize prosperity, personalize vitality as our own health and well-being. That's what we're supposed to be doing. So again, back up to who is this looking out with these eyes? Who is it that's viewing this? What do I see on the horizon? What does that mean to me? What am I projecting? Oscar Wilde said, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. It's so, that's true. I mean, you're so unique. I'm unique. Never been done before in exactly the configuration that we are. Never, and never will be repeated. That's how the universe manages to evolve every species. Diversity. New ideas, creative ideas, coming from different people, different ideas based on that person's self-awareness. One of my favorite books by Holmes, and by the way, if you ever have a friend that's interested in the teaching and you want to give them something kind of basic but deep, give them this thing called You by Ernest Holmes. Great book. In it, he asserts that within every human being is the creative urge. That's the inner press to express. And what we want to express is love and joy, prosperity and vitality, peace and intelligence. So the soul is, your soul, my soul, is what we've done with those qualities. It becomes like a compilation, if you will, an identifiable one that is behind the personality, but it is really what we have made of our natural ability to create, what we have made of spirit, what we have made of the qualities of God. That's our soul. Now, it is always pressing to express. And that's why we desire things. Rumi said something wonderful. He said, the thirst in man's soul is put out by the water itself. In other words, we're thirsty because water exists. We desire love because love is real and always available. We desire great work because creative intelligence is pushing through us. We want to let it roar through us. It's trying to come through as you and as me. It's trying to come through as an individualized version of itself. We desire peace on earth because peace is the reality. It's that stabilizing place between actions and between thoughts. It's the underpinning of all life is peace. And you feel it when you learn to meditate and you get in between thoughts, and there it is, just thrumming away like a little drum beat, like a heartbeat. It's called peace. We desire it in the world because we feel it inside ourselves. So what we feel inside ourselves naturally becomes a desire. It's the press to express. So desiring things is not wrong. It's when we think we can't have them that desire becomes a negative. But when we know that everything we desire is a possibility by means of us, by our expression, then we can begin to take baby steps in that direction, right? We can begin to listen to the prompting, feel the prompting, and act on it. It's wanting us to have our desire fulfilled. But it only comes through us, not to us. You know, somebody won that $1 billion the other night. Statistics show they'll be broke in a year because you can have a consciousness of winning, but you also have a consciousness of losing. You have to have a consciousness of wealth to keep money and to keep it flowing and generating in your life. A consciousness of wealth, of the never-ending supply, the inexhaustible reservoir of supply that comes from the realm of spirit and flows through us as we use it, as we open up to more use of it. So we can only express any of the things that we desire to the level of our self-identity. And what this means about when you talk about the manifestation process, you can never have anything better or worse than your belief. Sometimes that's a hard one to accept. You can never have anything more than you accept for yourself. And you can never have anything less. And you can manifest more strictly by the use of willpower, but you won't be able to keep it like the lottery winner. When I was living in Hawaii with my kids in the 70s, I was poor, working 40 hours a week, but you know. I did this whole vision board about this house I wanted to live in with my kids. 3 bedrooms. I wanted to be ocean view. Here's this person on welfare, right? I wanted to have a flat backyard, which in Kona is kind of hard to come by, with some trees and some fruit trees. And I want a garage. Never see garages in Hawaii. Okay, so this woman comes in one day to my beauty salon where I'm doing hair, and she tells me about this house for rent. And would I be interested? I said, yeah. And it happened to be just a little bit more than I was already paying for rent. Not a whole lot more, so I went to see it. It was 3 bedroom, had a flat backyard, it had banana trees, papaya trees, avocado trees, had a garage, had a washer and dryer, the whole thing. In 2 months, the owner decided they wanted the house back. I didn't have the consciousness for that house. I just knew how to make stuff happen. That's not spirituality, that's mind control. And I knew how to do it. But developing the consciousness of gracious living, consciousness of flowing supply, that's a whole other thing. And that's what we teach here, and that's what our classes are about. Because it takes the work out of it. You don't want to be sitting around all the time trying to make something happen, even if you know how to do it. We want to develop the consciousness of it, and it just roars through us. It just flows through us. It just comes to us. So if we truly believe that there is more to us, I want you to try something. This is my favorite saying I made up about what God is. So if you feel like it, say it out loud. And we might even do a little of this. Okay, God is the rest of me, the best of me, The not yet expressed of me.
The not yet expressed of me.
That's exactly what it is. I think that's a good place to close. I'm going to do a treatment. Merritt, if you come up and help me out. This just doesn't want to do this, does it? All right, we're going to join together now and just remember what our heart knows, our soul knows, our spirit knows. We've never forgotten, really. It's in us. And it wants to come out as words. It wants to come out as our perception of life. It wants to be seen and known as everything that we do and say and become. And that truth is simple. There's one life, one mind, one power, one presence, one perfect something, shouting its presence throughout the universe, revealing itself as the universe, as all sentient life. That one power, not two, one. One power, one glorious intelligence and absolute love. Making everything out of itself by becoming the thing it makes, being you, being me, being all life, every blade of grass, every grain of sand, the air, the universe, the planets in their orbits, the galaxies and beyond. It's all the one life showing itself. It lives in you, it lives in me, it lives in every single human being, and it wants out. It wants to come through you and live this life in the time-space dimension and love it and enjoy it and feel its own supply and its own love and its own joy and its own peace. It wants to know what it's like in human relationships, in creative ideas, in building and writing and singing and playing music and celebrating. Spirit wants us to let it through. So the invitation today for each and every one of us here is to say yes to that. Yes to the rest of me, the best of me, the not yet expressed of me. Yes to being transformed by this deep, eternal truth. Say this: I listen to my inner self. I know it has only good for me. I follow its lead, and it comes roaring through me. So with gladness in our heart and cheerful expectation for all that can be, we simply give ourselves permission to shine this light that we are, to let the world know us, see us, experience us, and be the living example of what spiritual magnificence really is. And so today I affirm that everybody here has had something on some level shift for the better, that there have been healings, there have been awakenings, and they continue beyond this moment. I affirm for each and every one of us that something wonderful is trying to happen through us, and that we are ready. We are available, and so is God. For this and so much more, we simply say, I am grateful. It is done, and so it is.